Welcome to Unite Now, where we bring unity to you, wherever you are.
Yeah, welcome everyone. We have 75 people already online. My name is Ciro Continisio. I'm the lead evangelist for the EMEA region. So I'm the lead of the team of evangelists that works out of Copenhagen mostly, and we look after the EMEA region, so Europe, Middle East, and Africa. Today we have Elena, who's our lead for online user groups and everything that concerns like the community at large. While Shema is from my team, so she's also a technical evangelist. Basically, our job is to travel. We used to be to travel. Maybe it will be in the future as well, and go to events, go to conferences, and speak with you, the developers, and talk all things about all things Unity. Mostly, we do technical presentations, which is what Shema is going to do today. And then we have Joanna, and Joanna is from the sales teams, right? So she's not an evangelist, but we also wanted to spotlight the work she does. And you might ask yourself, a salesperson? Like, this is crazy, right? But the cool thing is that at Unity, salespeople do work a little bit differently. And I found out this 4 years ago when I joined Unity. We actually traveled a lot together with Joanna. So the salespeople at Unity, they travel with us many times. They go to conferences. And so they get to understand the needs and the challenges that developers of all sizes have, basically. Joanna and other salespeople, they look after big companies, medium-sized companies, but also we've gone together to indie showcases, to game jams. So I think one cool thing is that her team really understands the community, and that's what she's going to talk about. She's going to be focusing on Middle East and Africa, right, Joanna?
That's correct.
Yes. My title is EMEA lead, so Europe, Middle East, and Africa. But to be fair, I travel very little to there. But and I'm a bit ashamed of that. But actually, our first trip was in Israel together, right, Joanna?
That's correct.
But yeah, Joanna is going to be talking much more in detail about her work in that region, which has been going for several years now. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I don't have any much else useful to say. So, Joanna, you want to take the floor?
Yes, thank you, Ciro. Thank you. Elena, you can start sharing. The world is a better world with more creator in it. So I think that you've seen it. You have seen this mantra a lot of time. So over the last few weeks, our world has been hit by the pandemic and followed by a heightened awareness of systemic racism. And we have noticed brands donating, pledging, offering, and doing grand gesture towards Black content creators. I personally was questioned about Unity's stance as a Black member of the community. At Unity, I want to ensure you that we are continuously working towards creating a better world with more creators in it. And in my case, more diverse creator in it. I will touch upon today Unity in the emerging markets, Middle East and Africa. And for those who know me from the community, you must have noticed this regional focus was added to my role in 2020. And for those who don't, I'm Johanna Riquier, and at Unity, I help and support building the tech ecosystem in Middle East and Africa. Of course, as a salesperson, I will not dive into the Unity business strategy for the region, but I'd like to tell you a story. I was hired in 2014 at Unity to support the business development for indies developers in Western Europe. And here you can see some of the places where we went. There is so much, as Ciro was saying, we travel quite a lot. So there was not enough space, and I didn't want to do a film. But coming back on the topic, in attending conferences, in talking to developers in Europe, I rapidly realized the importance of Unity and how Unity was changing the life of its users. I cannot count the numbers of times when I was wearing Unity t-shirt crew, I was stopped at gaming show or in the way to the gaming shows, and being hugged and being thanked. Oh, thank you. Unity has done so much. My life has changed. Unity has literally changed their life. So I was really amazed all the time. I was like, and sometimes really teary about their stories. But meanwhile, something was constantly bothering me. I rarely saw people like me. And oftentimes on Big Show, I could count about 5 to 10 Black people or 5 to 10 people of color. And I could also notice the lack of African or large Middle Eastern delegation, in those, dedicated countries, exhibition areas. So at Unity, I pledged to do something about it. I knew it would be a long way, but I knew as well that Unity was aiming to be the game engine to democratize game development by making it accessible to more developers. So more developers mean more developers like me. More developers included all the minority, regardless of races, ethnicity, sex orientation, religion, genders, identity. And I also wanted more minorities to hug me and to tell me, thank you, and to tell me Unity had changed my life. Today, I wanted to tell you how what exactly we're going to approach really on a high level. I only have 25 minutes. What I did, I started to slowly networking with the community. I was going above and beyond at every single interaction to know, to understand the landscape and the needs and anything between. LinkedIn, Facebook were becoming my best friends, actually. So today we will go over, as I said, I have a quick overview of the gaming market today in Middle East and Africa, and touch as well on some personal project. We want to know, what do we really want to know? We really want to know what is the landscape of gaming in the Middle East and Africa. We want to understand the needs. We want to understand what is next. Whilst we highlight some key point for the gaming industry in the Middle East and Africa, that list is not exhaustive, and I want to point it. And you can reach out to me afterwards if you have additional question. I will leave my details at the end. Yes. So let's start by the Middle Eastern. So this map is for illustration only, where you can see the superficie of the Middle Eastern region. In general, the Middle East has taken to gaming a big way and has some of the world's most active gaming community. So some title for console, Xbox exploitation, online and mobile games are becoming hugely popular out there. So I wanted to confirm, and the key point that we're going to talk about, the population, which is young, the large mobile console and console gaming community, the emergence of esport, and as well, virtual reality in the Middle Eastern region is used beyond gaming and actually very much used in the industrial and verticals. So the population, as I was saying, is young. The population is tech savvy. They want to find ways to entertain themselves, and oftentimes during the hot season. And there is an increase of the market of 25% annual growth. There is as well a large mobile and console gaming community. So, of course, some high-profile games are cannot be played in the Middle Eastern territories due to content restriction. However, there are some games such as League of Legends, Candy Crush Saga, which have been very successful games. The PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo, PC, smartphone, all of those has really contributed to the popularity of the gaming industry. And today, there is around 2 billion people falling into the category of gamer, according to WPC. There is as well a rise of esport, which is basically game taking to a, really athletic standard, and that provide a better living, playing games, like the experience, and basically they experience the rigor of the traditional sport and the negative perceptions that we can find not only in the Middle Eastern region, but as well in the African region, are beginning to change because of this sport. We can see as well there is a higher income disposable, which is different than Africa. So that means that user can actually invest in games. They can invest in games. They can invest in the hardware and the software. And as I was saying earlier, there is a real growth for virtual reality in the UAE, for example, where the VR and AR are forecast to contribute 4.1 billion to the economy by 2030, which will definitely have a significant impact on the employment. Let's go to Africa, which is interesting. So first of all, let's do the same exercise. So we put the map for illustration only, and you can fit all those countries, which basically illustrate how big Africa is, and as well why we expect the African population to double by 2050 to 2.5 billion inhabitants, which will be the quarter of the world population. So with that strong demographic and that strong demographic dynamics, there will be some challenges and opportunity. We are here to understand better what would be the challenges and what would be the opportunity. The opportunity in Africa is definitely the mobile gaming market. It is as well a fragmented market. Africa is not a country. Africa is a continent with 54 countries. So there is a fragmented market where we can see that the South Africa, there is some clusters, very active clusters. So South Africa, East Africa with Ethiopia and Kenya, West Africa with Ghana, Nigeria, Senegal, Cameroon, and North Africa with Morocco, Turkey, Tunisia, Algeria. Yes. So yes, I was providing the information about the mobile device maturity and the cost, and there is as well a high cost to the internet and the access. So internet access and cost. It's a challenge for game developer, but as well for gamers. Unity can bring solution for that, by the way, with the Unity Project Tiny. And I really wanted on the next slide to show you the numbers, really, to show the penetration rate of the mobile subscribers and mobile internet users in order for you to realize how big the opportunity in Africa is with regards to mobile. Here is the showreel that was produced by one of the community member on the African continent from Ivory Coast. For the Game Connection conference in last year. There are things happening. There is a community and a growing community. And what is our goal really is to do a bridge and to encourage and to be the ecosystem builder, Unity to be the ecosystem builder in the Middle East and Africa. Let's talk about the future for the gaming industry. And as I was saying, there was an impact of the coronavirus, which was felt across all industry. But gaming itself was one of the industries that have experienced significant growth. And I sat down and I really looked again. I've got sometimes where I put Project COVID-19 because I really want to help the region. And I focus in on three pillars. The focus will be on three pillars: the educations that we have already identified, education, the tech ecosystem builder, and three, the investment. So to create a new ecosystem, we can look at uh, learning enablement, which is key from primary school to professional development. And Unity provide, I don't know if you have seen, we now have Learning Premium, which has been made free for the whole of the community. But we also provide professional development in the form of training, bespoke training, tailored training to companies or enterprise that want to enable their workforce to use Unity. In the second point, the tech ecosystem. Let's build the ecosystem with incubator and accelerator to support the growth of innovative mind, building new technology application, building new platform and producing new content with new ideas that will be impactful, not only for the continent, not only for Africa, not only for the Middle East region, but as well for the whole globe. We I hear a lot about the leapfrog effect. And the third point will be the investment. So investment will be coming to support the whole ecosystem. So when we talk about the gaming industry, we talk about academia, we talk about game tech such as Unity. We talk about the studio, we talk about the publisher, the esport, and all the infrastructure around the gaming industry. And next, I wanted to highlight where Unity has been, because I heard as well Unity has never been in Africa, but yes, we have. Went to Amaze 2015, and all of those engagement was with certification exam, really engaging with the community in order for us to really understand what are the needs. We need to, there is a need for education, but not only education for tech, but education about the business of gaming, how to create, how to pitch a game, how to monetize, what can I do to monetize. That this whole knowledge that's been taken for granted in the Western world sometimes, this needs to be provided. And with the collaboration of the global gaming community, I believe that we can bring and help the Middle East and Africa gaming industry to great success. I wanted to spotlight as well what Unity is doing in terms of education, tech ecosystem investment. We recently partnered with 2454 in Abu Dhabi, because we understand that it is paramount to foster strategic and strong relationship with local partners to accompany the growth of content creators. So with this in mind, 2454 is tax-free media and entertainment-free zone based in Abu Dhabi. And their vision is to become the capital of content creator and to position Abu Dhabi as the regional center of excellence in content creation across all platforms. So it will be film, broadcast, music, digital media, events, gaming, and publishing. I'm conscious of time. I've got 3 minutes to finish. And so let's go next. We have as well some strategic and strong relationship with in Africa, with there, which is the Delegation for Rapid Entrepreneurship in Senegal, with the aiming as well to train young African to develop some companies in real-time 3D across gaming, media, manufacturing, education. And we have in NVivo as well with the same goal. Elena really asked me to touch upon one of my project outside of Unity, which is the Overlook Audience. So I'm an active member of the diversity and inclusion community. And 2 months ago, we started working on an initiative to highlight Black women in the gaming industry via a series of panel and interview. So we wanted to start the conversation about the current gaming industry and how to improve the chance to break into the gaming industry. So attract and retain, and most importantly, to brainstorm on retention and solution. So you can go on my LinkedIn. There is a series of interview, and we will have a panel at the end of the month with 3 or 4 women from Black women from the community. And the overlooked audience today focus on Black women, but tomorrow can focus on another minority from the gaming industry. So next, thank you very much. It was I had a lot of content for 25 minutes. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Johanna Riquier, Twitter at Jo_Riquier, on Facebook, Johanna Riquier, and my email address is johanna@unity.com.
Thank you so much, Joanna. And also another thing that I wanted to touch upon, which isn't something that you speak about in your presentation, because you typically are quite humble as to your efforts and what you do at Unity every day. So Joanna has been at Unity for over 6 years now. And what we connect and talk about, in our work conversations is also not just the importance of developing the regions for the sake of that experience or game staying in the region, but for the sake of, exporting talent globally. And to Joanna's point, if we learn anything from COVID-19 is that we can be productive at home, and therefore borders all of a sudden become less important. We've spoken to developers that are now hiring Q&A testers from different continents, different countries. So, if you are working on a game or looking for a job, don't think of yourself being locked into the immediate space that you're in, because the gaming space truly is global, and the boundaries are no longer as real as they were when we all were in the pre-pandemic time. So Joanna also spends quite a bit of time on making sure that we have very diverse experiences that are being created by developers with different backgrounds from all over the world that will then reach the consumer. So she definitely takes it above and beyond, I would say far beyond her just regular working hours at Unity. So thank you so much, Joanna.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Yeah, very interesting. There's a huge market, as you said, that is already huge and is growing as well. Joanna, if you had to choose an event, if I were an indie developer and I had to pitch my game, right? And if you had to choose an event to bring it to, which one would you, in the region, right? So which one would you?
In the Middle East and Africa region, you mean?
Yeah. Just name one.
In just one.
I mean, you can name 2 if you want.
Because as I said, the market are completely different. So I will go to South Africa for Africa, I will go to South Africa where everyone goes. There is an event.
There's a maze, right?
Yes, there is a maze, but there is a new event as well in South Africa in December, which is being held in Cape Town, and in Middle East, I would say the GGC that just passed 2 weeks or 10 days ago.
Okay. What's Dubai. The GGC? Which country is it from?
It's in Dubai.
Dubai. Okay. Cool. Cool. Somebody's asking, do you have a link to the data on platform popularity in the countries of this region? So which platforms are more popular?
In Middle East, yeah? Because in Africa is the mobile. Yes, I can provide the link. So you can send me an email and I can provide the link.
Okay, shall we move to Shema?
Hi everyone.
Joanna, and now Shema is going to present about UI toolkit. I don't want to make mistakes, and UI builder. So as I said before, Shema is another tech evangelist in my team. She's actually from Tunisia, so she's from the area, right?
Yeah, and I think I've been in an event, I don't know if it's GDC or something else, but like an event for developers there. Thank you, Joanna, for talking about this. It's really good. Thank you.
Yeah, Shema, I'll leave you the floor. I don't want to say anything else, so
okay.
I'll leave it to you.
Okay, hello everyone. So today we are going to talk about UI elements and UI builder and how to create editor extensions using those tools. First thing, UI element is now called UI Toolkit. And the reason for this name change is that UI Toolkit encapsulate more all the features and all the assets that we have for UI elements. UI Toolkit is actually a retain mode UI framework that retain mode means that it will not refresh for each frame. It will only refresh when the UI is changed. It helps you create UI for runtime and UI for editor extensions as well. It's very good for collaborations, for extensibility and reusability, and we will see those later on. It's also more comprehensible for people who develop on web. So as I said, UI Toolkit contains various features. As like you see here, there are assets, the UI documents, that is UXML, where you develop your hierarchy, you write your elements. It's actually Unity extensible markup language, which is inspired by HTML and XML. So if you know those, you will be familiar with UXML very easily. We have also the styling sheet that takes care of the styling that is developed with USS, Unity styling sheets that are a subset of CSS and act like it. We will see that in depth later on. It also contains the tools, the UI builder that helps you create your UI without having to go through the code, the UI element debugger that will allow you to inspect your elements either in the runtime or on the editor, and the UI element sample that will give you samples of UI elements that you can use. So the UI toolkit is based on the logic that is developed with C#, the hierarchy that is developed with UXML, where you can put your elements, and the styling that is developed with USS. Here, I will just speak a little about the logic. For example, here we have how to create your UI. You will need to have the root visual element of your window, for example. Load the visual tree asset. Here, the artist tool is actually artisttool.uxml. So you load it as a tree asset, and then you clone it to the root. Also, to add the style sheet, you can either do it in the logic in C#. So you load your style sheet here. It's artisttool.uss and add it to the style sheet of the root. Or you can do it in the UXML and add this simple line here, style, source, and you add the path to your USS file. To access one of the elements that you have in your hierarchy, you can do it by using the simple line root q, add the condition that you want. So for example, here we want to look for a slider with the name time and do something to it. We will see that later on. So once we do that, we will access the time slider that is called time. And as you can see in the window created later, it's this element right here. Also, to access multiple elements at the same time, you can use query to and the condition that you want. So for example, here with this line, we have all the gradients that are under root, the visual element. To style an element, you can do it either with the logic or in the hierarchy. You can just like here, if you are familiar with HTML, you know this. It's adding a height to the timed element, visual element. You can also do it by adding a class that is referenced in the USS file. All this is plenty of code, and coding everything from scratch is really it requests a long concentration. So to help you with it, we have the UI builder that will allow you to create your UI simply by drag and dropping it in the hierarchy. So this is the interface. I'm going to show you all the interface point by point, and then we are going to jump on the editor to look at the demo that we have. So first we have the viewport. As you can see, it resembles a little the editor when you are creating a game. So for example, here it's like the scene. So we have the viewport. We have the hierarchy that contains all the elements that we have. If we click on one element, we will see it highlighted in the viewport, and then we will see the information of that element that are in the inspector in here. The inspector will have the properties of the C# type. So for example, now we clicked on a label, so we see the properties of the label. We will see this part for the style sheet. And then at the end, we have the inline styles that contain the styling that we've seen in the UXML. So everything that you change in the inline styles will be added to the style in the UXML. Speaking about styles, if, for example, here you have the selector title that is added to the style sheet, it will be taken from the style sheet here that we have, the artisttool.uss. This is the part where you have all the old styling sheet. You can have 0, 1, or multiple USS added to the same UXML. I know you heard me talking about selectors. So a selector is what defines the element that you want to access. So for example, a selector can be C# type. It can be the name of the element. It can be a class that is applied to it. It can be the child of a class. So for as you see in here, it can be any child. It's either the direct child or any child, and it can be a class with a status. For example, we have hover, focus, active, etc. And as you can see here, this is a selector that's been added to the title. When we will be in the editor, if we hover on one pill, we will see all the elements that contain this selector hovered in the viewport. So next we have the library section here. The library contains either the standard UI elements that you can drag and drop either in the viewport or the hierarchy and use, for example, the label, button, toggle, text field, visual element, scroll view, list view, etc. Or it contains also the project assets. So if you create, for example, a UXML, any UXML you created can be added to your actual UXML that you have. Last, if you want to see your code, you don't have to go out of the Unity editor. You can just see it in the preview in here. So we have the UXML preview and the USS preview with this button to open your actual file. Now, before jumping on the demo, I will just talk to you a little bit about this demo. We are going to use the Lost Script, which is a 2D sample project that showcases all of Unity 2D tools. It contains functionality that will change the scene from day to night, as you can see here. It actually modifies many parameters in the hierarchy. And as you can see, it is very complicated to just tweak sometimes. So one of our artists requested that we create an artist tool for this demo so they can just tweak some properties like the sky gradients, the ruin, the trees, the rims, the sunlights, the grass lights, the post-processing, for example, the white balance, the bloom, or the glow particle. And that was one of their requests. First thing we are going, so they wanted, let me just show you a little bit what it does. They wanted to change the gradient without having to go in the scene to change the gradient. They also wanted to change the volume here. And at the end, they want to change some particle system. Now let's jump to our editor. Full disclosure, I made I just started to create the artist tool to save sometimes. And this is what I have until now. Sorry, yeah. Let me just position it so you see it. I have my artist tool with some parts of what's been requested by the artist. And if, for example, I change the slider for the time, it will change it in the scene. This actually happens because my slider here for time is linked to this here. It's actually bound, binding an element, binding a visual element to a property within the object, synchronizes the properties between the scene and the UI element. So for example, if I change this here, I will see it change in the artist tool and the other way around too. Let's add some gradients because this is one thing that is repeating many times in the artist tool request. To do that, either we go to the folder that we want to create on and just right-click, create, and go to UI element. We can choose to create either a USS file, a UXML file, or we open the editor window and we create a C# UXML and USS. So here, if I write anything, it will be written in the 3 fields. For this demo, I already created the UXML file that we want to modify. This is the gradient light color. I can either double click on it to open the UI builder, or go under window UI and I'll find the UI builder. The UI builder is actually a package that you need to download from the package manager. And once you have it, it's just you go to window and then UI builder. So let's open our gradient light color UXML. It's already open because I double clicked it. Now that we have our UXML, we will go to the standard elements. We will look for a gradient, drag and drop it in the hierarchy. Drag and drop it in the hierarchy, call it gradient. And then because the artist asked for a visualizer to visualize the color each time we change the slide for the time, we will drag and drop a visual element under the gradient. We will call it visualization color. This part of the code for the visualization color has already been written. That's why I needed the name to be exactly like that. And we go just change the size to 20, for example, and 20 for the height. Let's add a margin. Let's add a border just so we can see our element. And width. So now we have our visual element for the visualization. As you can see, I added all the styling in the inline styles. I just have to write the name of the class that I want to affect this to. And then I click on extract inline styles to a new class and it will be added. Sorry, we have to create a new USS. Let's call it gradient style. Once we create a new class, it will require either a new USS or it will be added to the existing USS that you have here. So now save everything. Now we have our gradient. We can preview it, for example, see how it acts. It's good. Okay, our gradient is created. Let's go back to the project. Let's open the artist tool that we have. As you can see, I just clicked on the icon here and it's been opened in the UI builder. Now, as I told you before, I didn't want to create a new UXML because I already added the other gradient just to save some time. I just have to drag and drop the gradient light color here to our gradient fold out. First one, and then let's call it sky gradient. If we save it and we open our artist tool again, we will see it added here. It doesn't work because it's not bound yet. So for this, let's open our editor, our C# file, and then I'll just copy inside it the code that we want to have and explain it to you. Or maybe before doing that, I'll show you what we want to do exactly. So if we go back to our scene, what we want to do is bind the sky gradient to this gradient. So I want, if I change this color to, for example, pink, just so we can see it, and then move the timer a little, you will see that the sky became pink. What we want to do is that we want to link this gradient to the UI element that we have in our artist tool. So what we are going to do is that we are going to look for, in our code, we are going to look for this game object. We are going to look for this component, and then we are going to bind the game object to our property with a binding path. The binding path is actually very easy to find. You just have to switch your inspector from normal to debug, and then go to your property, click on Alt, and you will see the name of the property that will help you to bind it. So yeah, let me show you the code and explain it to you further. So as you can see, we are looking for the visual element called sky gradient, the one that we just created. Then we are going to look for a gradient field that is under the sky gradient. And after that, we are going to look for our the game object, and then the component that is under it. We are going to serialize it so we can bind it. And we are going to specify the binding path, the name that we just saw in the inspector. And then we are going to bind the gradient field to the serialized material. To the serialized component. Now, also, we are going to query the label just to change it to sky gradient. So when it's shown in our extension, it will have the name sky gradient. Save this and go back to our scene. We will see that once it's recompiled, the artist tool will reload again, and it will be bound to our gradient in here. So we just have to change the color again to yellow, and yes, it changed to yellow. If we do the other way around, let's bring it back to blue. Yep, it's blue. So now that we have the gradient, the sky gradient added, I'm not going to spend time adding the other ones. I will tell you that I've added the other ones and added styling to them called templates, and put the display on none. Now I will display them again, and you will see them appear in the UXML. If we save and go back to our artist tool, we will see that all the UXML, all the templates have been added and linked just yet. Great, now that we have everything working well, something actually is not working in the artist tool right now. It's the intensity of the bloom. So if I change it in here, it will not change. If I go to my volume and then let me put this back to normal, and then I change the intensity, you will see that it's not bound to the UI element that I have here. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to do the same thing, put it on debug, open the shared profile, then open the bloom, and go to the value that I want to change, which is the intensity of the bloom. Click on Alt for the value, and you will see that it's intensity.m value. I'm not going to add it through the code. I will just tell you that the element is bound to the serialized to the serialized component. And I'm going to go back to the UI builder, the intensity, and just add the path in here. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to add the intensity dot, value, and save it. So once it's saved, the binding path in here, let's open the artist tool again. And as you can see, the intensity have been bound to your to the element. So let's change it here, and we will see it change at the same time in the UI element in the artist tool that you have. Let's reset it. Okay. So yeah, I think that we have our artist tool created. Now let's go back to our artist and tell them that. They told us that they created their own wind tool that will help them to change the shader property, and it's ready. So they only have to push the UXML and USS and the code with it, and asked us to add the wind tool to our artist tool in here. So what we are going to do is going back to the editor, drag and drop the wind component. As you can see, let's open their wind artist tool. It's here. If we change the wind direction, yes, it will be applied on the shader. So let's go back to our UI builder, drag and drop the wind tool. Let's find this. And as you can see, it's been added to our existing artist tool. So just save it, go back, open the artist tool, and yeah, it's here. Now it's kind of not the same style, so maybe I want to add the style of this tool to my tool. Just click on this button, plus add existing USS, and add the existing USS that I have in the resources for the wind component. And as magical as that, it's been applied in to my artist tool. Now let's open it again. Yep, you will see the change reflect in here. Great. I think we have a happy artist now. So yeah, thank you very much for following. If you have any question, of course, I will be here to answer them. I'll try to answer most of them. Also, if you want to know any more things about UI Toolkit, there is our forum that is very active, and I advise you to go there and check it. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Shema. Yeah, we have a few questions.
Oh, nice.
Plenty of questions. The one I wanted to start with was actually posted in the chat, so it's not visible to everyone. But somebody was asking, I guess you said it very fast. So UI Builder is an extension of Unity. Yes, it's a package, right?
Yeah.
So it's a package that you can get it. So obviously, like many features lately, they come through Package Manager. And then they were asking if it's compatible across all platforms.
Like you can use them for
UI Builder. But I guess yes. I mean, the answer is obviously yes, because it's a tool that is used to build the UI. So you don't bring UI builder inside the build.
Exactly. So yeah, it's completely separate, but the UI will work for mobile, for example.
What's going on with animation in UI builder?
Well, it's in the making. It's in the making. So in the future, we will have animations for UI Toolkit. Also, right now, you can just use some tweening to tweak the values during runtime. So it's kind of very heavy in the development, but it's being developed.
Yes, because obviously the question is implying, I guess the question goes in the direction where before we would basically ask people to animate through the animator, right? And that's not the most optimal solution. So many people were relying on tweens. Mm-hmm. And as you said, like that's a feature that works with UI elements as well, or UI Toolkit, I should say. But we're also thinking of a native animation system for UI.
Yeah.
And the reason why it's not been done first is because UI Toolkit came to the editor first, where animation is a bit less important. But for the runtime version of UI Toolkit, we are definitely working on that. But as Shema said, is in development. What about TextMesh Pro for live UI? I guess for runtime UI, not the editor.
Yeah, it's also in the making, and it will be added to the UI Toolkit.
Okay, so you will be able to create TextMesh Pro text fields with UI Toolkit.
I think it's more. It will be you could create the UI, and it will be using TextMesh Pro core text.
Yeah, for runtime, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It's important to understand that this toolkit. I mean, you mentioned it, but obviously, it's going to be used for both runtime and the editor, right? So we started with the editor tools, and actually, many parts of the editor are already using UI Toolkit.
Yeah.
I think Shader Graph is using it. It's made with UI Toolkit.
I think so. Yes.
There's a couple of tools, and other tools are just like old EM GUI, which is embedded inside UI Toolkit. So one of the abilities that UI Toolkit has is to embed IM GUI widgets, which means that if you have a tool that's that you made in the past with IM GUI, you can still embed it inside. Yeah. So Shema is showing the IM GUI container.
Yes, exactly. So you can go to the library and add the IM GUI container, and then through the code you can just add your IM GUI there.
Yeah. So obviously, in time we wanna migrate everything to that, but if you have some tool that you really want to use or some asset that you bought, right, you can embed it inside the UI Toolkit piece of UI in the editor. Of course, I'm talking about the editor, not in game. So multiplayer stack ETA, that's a very hard question. Giving a timing for us, it's a bit hard also because we are not developers. So we can't do that. The multiplayer stack, as you know, is being built on DOTS technology. So there's part of it which is already done, like the transport layer, which has been used in FPS sample, but obviously the stack goes way higher. So we're working on the top parts, let's say. Shema, this question, I think you've already seen it. What about an auto upgrade from the Unity UI to the new Unity UI builder?
No, I don't think that that's in making. I mean, it's two different ways of thinking, so I don't think that an auto upgrade will be possible.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess to finish the question, it is true. I mean, if you were to convert your game to fully from like UGUI to UI Toolkit, you will need an auto upgrade. But I don't think that's something we suggest. I mean, we don't suggest a game that is in production, that is already advanced and has a lot of UI, to migrate completely to the new UI Toolkit. That would be obviously a lot of work, but it will also like introduce a lot of work for the payoff, I would say. So it is a feature that you want to make a choice on early on, and then stick with it.
Exactly. I think I need to say that if you want to try a UI toolkit for runtime, it's now in experimental. So you can do it not for production, just to test it, to see how you could create your own UI using a UI toolkit.
Yeah. So as you said, like there's different pieces, right? There's UI toolkit for the editor that's already in preview, and that's the one you've been using here.
Yeah.
There's the UI builder, which obviously works for that, and then the UI toolkit runtime, which is in the future is going to be the replacement for in-game UI. But again, it's in experimental, so it's a bit early on. Obviously, the fact that the UI has to be in-game presents different challenges from the editor.
Yeah.
I've seen a question from John O'Reilly at 6:23 p.m. He was saying, as a developer in Europe, how can I best support developers in Africa and other emerging regions? So I would suggest for the first step would be to join the Unity user groups that that are based in the regions. So you can find the links on the unity3d.com website, and if you Google Unity user group Unity, you will have the link, and be in touch, exchange, and try to collaborate on projects in order for everyone to gain from the experience on the technical side, on the business side, and as well on the cultural side.
If I may also add to that, I think and thank you for, of course, calling out the user groups and local organizations that are all over the world. I think one of the most important things is, being available as a mentor as well. Particularly, Unity works with a lot of students. We have a group within Unity that, focuses directly on efforts within colleges and K through 12, etc. But if you are available, if you were able to have a successful switch from being a student to from being an indie, or being a self-taught developer, and you've got a job, I think one of the most important things is to offer up your mentorship and help people connect to your story and how you went from being, home alone studying Unity on YouTube to making your first prototype to actually having a job. That's something that, often helps both in terms of inspiration and also understanding what tools did you use, what tools are there that are available. Offering any sort of mentorship, I think, is absolutely huge. And to Joanna's point, people think of Africa, it's not a country, it's a continent with 50 plus countries. Oftentimes people will come to ask for advice as to how can I pitch? Should I be posting screenshots of this on Twitter? If you have any experience with advising people on whether or not to self-publish or look for a publishing agency, any of that advice is super crucial, especially when you're coming from a Western world where you may have been privy to some of that experience in your business life.
Yes, correct.
Or you can hire people in Africa.
Exactly. Better yet, hire.
Yes.
There's a pool of talent, right? Which is probably looking for a job like every other region, to be fair.
Absolutely.
Cool. More questions. There's plenty of questions for UI Toolkit. What's the roadmap for runtime UI Toolkit support? Well, we said that...
I don't have it. I know that right now it's an experimental. It will be released, I think, in preview in the end of this year. But I don't have dates for it. I think I will check the forum and send you a link maybe. Anyway,
in terms of roadmap, I guess the first thing you will see pop up is the typical screen space UI, and then we will move on to word space and this kind of more challenging implementations, because obviously screen space looks very similar in that implementation to what's happening in the editor. This is a question I don't know actually. Will you also be able to embed IAM-GUI in runtime UI Toolkit? That's a good question. Why would you do that though? Because IAM-GUI, it's obviously very useful in the editor, and there's plenty of tools being made. during the runtime, I mean, in a game, it's a bit heavy. So I don't think it's a very good choice for runtime UI. If you're talking about embedding a tool inside UI elements, UI toolkit at runtime, then it wouldn't be possible, because if a tool made for the editor relies on editor libraries, then it wouldn't run at runtime. Okay, and she builds on the question saying, like, our entire runtime GUI is still in IAM GUI. It is ridiculously heavy. Yes. Okay. Sorry to hear. Yeah. When was the game started? When was the development started?
It will be a great idea to move to UI Toolkit.
Okay, the development was started on Unity 3.6. Wow, that's a long development. Ooh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I started with Unity 3.6 actually. So it's like 8 years ago, something.
The development of the game started in 2012. Yes, so it's 8 years ago. Wow, that's a long way coming.
Yeah.
When is it releasing? We release each year. Okay, so it's an ongoing. It's an ongoing game. It's a live game, I guess.
Nice.
Fair enough. Okay, I was worried that it was still had to be released.
Chira, and while you're picking the next question, I also wanted to encourage people to share some of the updates. If you go to any of the regional chapter meetups, you will see that typically at the meetup, we will ask, if you have any announcements. Maybe you're finishing the game and you're looking for testers. Maybe you're looking to hire, you're looking for a job, etc. If there are any announcements that you would like to make, please do so. And of course, don't forget to share the region that it is applicable to as well.
I have one question. Will support for progress bars be moved out of editor only? This is actually a very great question, and I'll definitely ask the team and answer you for that one. Because, I know that the progress bar is in editor only and you can't use it in runtime. So I'll check it and get back to you in that one.
Cool. Yeah, I see this these bunch of controls here. It says editor only, right?
Yeah. And in new versions of the editor, you would have to enable the editor UI to be added, because by default it will not be shown. So we just have to go. I think here I don't have it because I'm using the 2019.4. But you go to the hierarchy to the UXML, and you will see a button here to enable it.
Then somebody's saying, so UI Toolkit is kind of looking like WPF UI Toolkit in Visual Studio /Windows and XAML. With that UI Toolkit, it would be possible to create as crazy experiments to build desktop apps. I guess you can build desktop apps, yes. In what sense? Like, it's still made with Unity, right? It will still be a Unity executable with just UI, I guess.
Yeah. The UI will be in UI Toolkit, but the game is Unity built.
I think one of the future uses of UI Toolkit, which we have just barely mentioned, is that the fact that because now the technology, kind of like IAM GUI, the technology behind editor UI and runtime will be the same. Then up to a certain point, you will be able to move tools in the runtime, right? So you will be able to embed a tool that you make for the editor in the runtime, again, up to a certain point. But it will be possible to envision like a piece of UI for both runtime and the editor. So you can really create tools that then you can build into the game, which will be very useful, for example, for creating debug views and debug controls, any kind of basically editor tool directly into the game to make something that, to tweak something maybe in the build, maybe on the console or on the device or whatever. So that's a very powerful use for the future. Again, this will only come when UI Toolkit runtime will be completely available and working.
I think we don't have any more UI related questions. There's a new question, for UI Builder. So will there be a way to view within UI Builder variable from USS? So I don't know if I understood correctly, but do you mean seeing, like in here, for example, we have the template, it's a variable from the USS, and you can actually, when you click on it, you will see all the properties in the inspector and you can modify them. So if I, for example, I go to title, it's applied, as you can see, on the title, timed element and constant element title. I will change the color of the background. Why not? And you will see that the color of the background for two elements that are with the title class have been changed. And as you can see in the preview, if I save it, I see it added here.
So yeah, as you can see, it's basically like UI Builder is kind of like a wrapper around the two assets that are XML and CSS.
USS.
Yeah, I was referring to the original
okay.
tech that they're inspired from. You can have variables in USS, but can't view it inside of UI Builder. Maybe they're talking about variables as in like proper variables, like not fixed values, but I'm actually not a super expert of CSS. I left it like years and years and years ago. So I only know.
I don't think there's anything that you can have or maybe there are properties that are not present. If you have any palpable, concrete example, just send it to me and I'll try to find out why it's not shown.
Yeah, they're talking about defining new variables basically inside the USS. No, I don't think we support that. It's just like like you would say a basic implementation of CSS. Because you can do that kind of stuff like through other means anyway, like through C# or in other parts. Maybe we will support it. I mean, it's an interesting suggestion. I'm actually not sure if we have it in the roadmap.
Maybe you mean because root is normally this is root, so maybe you mean this color.
No, but they mean like variables, like the idea of having a centralized value and.
Let's just test this. No, it's not. Maybe that's it. I don't know. Maybe you're talking about this. Okay. I will check this. I'll definitely check this and tell you more, Darren.
Ciro, I'm also seeing some questions about VR, AR development from an anonymous attendee as well as Johannes, asking about the development for Editor VR and whether or not it's still active because the last GitHub commit was a while ago. For that, I would recommend checking our Unite schedule as there are some talks that will be happening. I also would, of course, recommend following our Unity's XR evangelist, Dan Miller.
Yeah, bother him, not us. I actually asked him on Slack just now because I saw the question, and then confirmed that the development is still undergoing. It's just that they haven't posted they haven't pushed the code to the public mirror, let's say. So yeah, it is still undergoing. It's just going a bit slowly. The development, we're talking about the development of Editor VR. And same thing for the, sorry, just to wrap up the VR AR, same thing for the anonymous attendee asking about VR and AR development. We do have plenty of features coming. Dan just linked me to a couple of blog posts, which I'm gonna reshare in the chat, which came out very recently. And then obviously we have Mars. So Mars is a bit of a special one, as you know or might not know. So Mars is kind of like a suite, I would call it, a suite of tools that builds around AR. So whatever you do with AR, then Mars is kind of like a different tool that allows you to create the AR experiences in a much better way. And for that reason, it exists as a different product as well, which has a cost. So you might have seen the announcement, but if you, no worries. If you check that link, the last one I posted, you will see everything about Mars. For the rest, of course, we commit to to implement all of the new AR features that come from device manufacturer. So as Apple and Google and everyone else build them, we obviously will implement them in time.
Yeah.
What else?
So I wanted to ask Elena if we could send an email later on, because I'm going to share this demo with everyone. So if you want to check it, ask questions, I will answer some of the questions that's been added here, and maybe send an email to the attendees later.
Great. So for everyone who has been present today, when you were signing up for this webinar, if you have checked the option to allow us to contact you, anyone who did that, we will actually follow up with an email after the fact to send any pertinent documentation that we were speaking about but couldn't share during the webinar, during the meetup. So, if you didn't check that box, it's no worries. Like I said, just make sure to follow the panelists, speakers on social, and of course check out the forum as well. But if you did check off that box so we can contact you, we will follow up probably early next week with some relevant information for those that attended.
Cool. There's more questions coming in. Somebody's asking, looks like UI Toolkit is used mostly for internal tools, artists, level designers. What other applications could this be used for?
Applications?
What could it be used for? I mean, in time, it will be used for everything that you use regular
UI.
Yeah, I mean regular tools. Like when I say regular, I mean the ones that already exist today, and maybe you see on the asset store, or the ones you create yourself. For example, I made a framework to teach kids how to make games with Unity, and I customized the inspectors of both Unity built-in components and my custom components to make them simpler and to make them more digestible for kids. So that could be another use, like create custom editors and custom inspectors, to simplify content or to create some kind of different visualization for different users, for instance. That could be a use.
Yeah. Also, if I can add you can create some extension to the device simulator. So, for example, if you use the device simulator to simulate your game, you can add an extension using the UI toolkit to test, I don't know, how to fire the game over event, or how to add some elements to the inventory or something like that. So you can use it to extend the device simulator feature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so basically you can use it for everything you're using custom UI for these days. Again, the big cool thing that will be enabled in the future is to be able to bring these tools into the game, and then it would be super powerful. And don't think only of inspectors, but think also of scene tooling. So today, obviously, you can create scene gizmos, like visualize like waypoints or paths or areas, and you will be able to do that as well. So obviously, UI Toolkit is going to slowly replace the editor UI.
There's another question. Will there be support for CSS style pseudo classes like hover, active, or breakpoint media queries for responsive design? I'm not sure I understand the second one, the breakpoint and media queries, but for the first one, yes, it's very simple. You just write your class, and then if you click on these two dots, you will see the pseudo class like hover, the states hover, active, selected, checked, or focused. So yeah, once you have them, you add them, and that's it.
Yeah, again, personally, I'm a bit behind on web development. I focused on games, obviously, for a few years. So I'm a bit behind on that. So some newer things, and maybe for you, Trevor, they might be old, but for me, they're like new. So, but what I would suggest is go to the forums, go to the UI Toolkit forum, and shoot the question in there, because then the developers of the toolkit itself can reply. And obviously, they've been looking at things that CSS and HTML provide and how to replicate them into Unity when it makes sense, of course.
Also, they're looking for feedback from people that are using the feature, so don't hesitate.
Yeah, of course. Somebody's asking, do we have a multiplayer solution for instant games? Project Tiny.
Chiro, may I just interrupt you, because actually Joanna has to run to her next engagement. So I just wanted to thank Joanna for her time and stopping by to tell us about what she does and offering her support and and her contact information for everyone who's been here, guys. I hope you will leverage that. She does respond. She's very active on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Twitter. So feel free to reach out to Joanna. She's an excellent resource, particularly, for anything business related for the EMEA. She's definitely your person.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot for the invitation.
Yeah, and if when traveling resumes, we will start going back to the region again. I pledge to go a bit more. I would actually love to do it.
Yeah.
Shema, I'm going first. You don't have a chance.
Thank you everyone. Bye.
Bye, Joanna.
Bye.
Yeah. So somebody was asking. The question. Yeah. Do we have a multiplayer solution for instant games, Project Tiny? Not right now, but we're working on that. And because the multiplayer stack that we're working on is dots based, I guess it's going to come to Project Tiny, before actually game object based games. So we will have something like that. I don't know if it's a priority, because obviously Project Tiny is aiming to cover a certain kind of use cases, and not necessarily they are multiplayer games. They're usually playable ads and instant games, of course. So it's not like the best use case for multiplayer games. So I'm not sure about that. But Project Tiny is basically dots, right? For now is a very custom version of dots that has its own renderer. But one thing that you need to understand is that as we move forward with dots, things are gonna join in the middle. So the big dots, the one that you've seen used in Megacity, and that we're using for other demos, is gonna join with Project Tiny, and they will share the same architecture underneath. So whatever works with dots will work with Project Tiny. And then the fact that it's tiny is only because you're gonna be able to choose the pieces, and because you can customize it to the essential, then you can make it tiny by just leaving things out. And if you pull things in, it becomes bigger. That's kind of like the roadmap, if you want to know. So maximum customization, and the idea that you will be able to pull multiplayer in or out depending if you need it or not. Elena, this is a question for you. Thanks so much for the global meetup, says Eric. Any plans for additional events in the future?
Eric, so we did actually talk about hosting these more frequently, as opposed to just doing it during the time of the pandemic. And there was quite a good reception, actually, especially because, we are realizing that borders are sort of a
construct.
Yeah, they're this imaginary construct, especially when it comes to the world where we could be collaborating and working in a collaborative environment online. So we are planning to do more of these. And again, the way that we hosted this meetup is that we actually looked to our team and said, what are some of the cool topics that we could talk about? And then we put up a poll on Twitter to see what the community really wants to hear about. And that kind of goes back to how you guys host it. So Eric hosts, or helps rather, with the New York chapter. We always want to hear from the community as to what topics are interesting to you. And so we are hoping to maybe do 2 or 3 more of these before the end of the year, and always leaning on the community to see what you guys want to hear from us. So whether it's dots, or, if you want to just go and do straight up coding meetup, whatever it could be, we're hoping to do more of these. We were just also very excited to see such warm reception. I think typically people are very confined to where they are, and to see that today we had people from multiple continents coming in together, that was really truly wonderful. So yeah.
Yeah, I think we can definitely keep doing this. Obviously, when we will be able to travel, we will also start doing that as well. But a mix of the two is the best way to go.
And in the meantime, we are still doing, speaking engagements, particularly for just one group, right? We will still just dial in for, one location for one city and whatnot. But I think it is quite nice to open up, the stage for people from all over the place. So I'm hoping to see these become a permanent feature on our annual calendar, and maybe we'll do this quarterly, maybe we'll do this monthly. It depends on how many of you guys want to turn up, but I don't see why we can't continue these even when we're able to go back and travel.
Yep.
Yeah, this could be nice.
And we actually have a few things coming up. It's not really user groups, but we have a couple of initiatives coming up in evangelism, which I can't really say what they are yet, but they will be pretty cool and they will be pretty live. So they will be interactive, a lot interactive, and online, of course. So keep an eye out. You will see them for sure if you keep an eye on the blog and on Twitter for the Unity account. In addition to online user groups, of course.
We sound very secretive, but Chiro has been one of the masterminds behind it, and it truly is going to be a super neat experience and initiative. We haven't done anything like this before, so it can go two ways, right? It can either be super awesome or flop, but I think I think it's not going to be a disaster. I think it's going to be great.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun, one way or the other. You'll see.
I think in terms of some of the remaining questions, like I said, some of them are a little too specific, right? From Leroy about deploying to iOS. Leroy, I would recommend trying to maybe connect with us offline, if that would be okay.
Leroy, I've seen that problem already. The fact that you mentioned that Unity is asking for permissions that you are not requesting yourself. I don't know much about the subject. The only thing I know is that sometimes those permissions are requested by the usage of third-party assets or specific packages that for some reason are requesting those permissions on purpose or by mistake sometimes. So I would suggest to bring it to the forums. I mean, it's number one, because there's many threads about that already. I've seen that. I've seen people getting some apps rejected by Apple because of that. Apple for apps for kids, and so I know that there's a big discussion going on, and I don't remember the specifics. So I will suggest to go there to check what they said already, and then to ask.
Chiro, I see a question from Abdi Hakim in terms of what can we do to support the community in Kenya. I would love to connect with you offline. As Chiro said, I do look after organizers of meetups all over the world. We have various things we can offer, anything from helping with educational materials. If you want to kick off some of the meetups and don't have presentations or whatnot, we can be the ones to actually host them online. I can help you set up meetup or Facebook pages, manage them, as well as there are certain incentives for organizers, right? Like helping you to get Unity certified. We do that as well. In a lot of cases, it really helps to better understand what it is that a certification process looks like, helps you be a better, teacher, because oftentimes organizers themselves end up presenting quite a bit at these meetups. So please feel free to reach out to me. I will put my email again in the chat here. I'm also on Twitter. I'll put that as well. Whatever method is more convenient to you, I'd love to take it offline and start talking about how to host the first event for you in Kenya.
Nice. Yeah. And then of course, let's connect and organize maybe something online first. And then in the future, we'll look into to come, hopefully. I'm very eager to go back to traveling, to be honest. And, all this, as I said, I haven't traveled much in Africa. I've done Israel and Saudi Arabia, and then for personal reasons, Morocco. So I would love to go. Somebody's asking why there isn't a unique ID per game object components that we can use in runtime serialization, for example. I don't know. I have to be honest. Sorry. I know I've seen this discussion running around. I know I'm not too sure about the reason. Somebody else is asking, why are transparent elements very heavy to process? Is it like a generic question, or is it just for UI toolkit? If it's a generic question, I would answer because you're processing pixels multiple times. So computers don't have a good way to understand. For example, if a glass is dirty or something, or you have 2-3 layers of glass, and together they obscure the objects behind, the computer doesn't have a way to understand that. So what it does is it just processes the pixel multiple times, sometimes finding out that pixel is actually 100%
transparent.
No, 100% opaque.
Oh, okay.
So you can have a transparent object that's 100% opaque. The computer doesn't know, so it has to process that pixel. And if you put multiple, then that will add up. While if you mark an object as opaque, then you're guaranteeing to the computer that that object is covering up the ones that are behind. That's why transparent elements in general are very heavy to process. I don't know if that's the question. That was the question, or if it was more, for UI it would be the same concept, basically.
Well, it seems that we are at the end of all of our questions, unless I missed any. And we're also almost at time. I'm sure for a lot of you, it could be late. Some of you, if you're from the Pacific or East Coast of the United States, you probably are still in the middle of your workday. So unless there are any more questions, I suppose this is where we can thank everyone for tuning in to our very first Global Unity Meetup.
Sorry, Elena, I want to take just this last one, because I think it's a good one. So Sandor was asking, because Unity Connect is not, I guess to translate, I think he means that there's not much activity. So he's asking basically if it's possible for Unity to connect developers and other professionals from other parts of the world. For example, if I want to put African presence or cultural heritage in my game, it would be a big help if I could connect with somebody who can teach me how to do that. I would suggest, Sandor, if you use Twitter, that's a very powerful tool to do that. You can either put a request out, but of course, if you don't have many followers, that might not reach too many people. Or you could do a little bit of research and look for people that are talking about that. There are some, for example, narrative designers and writers are good people generally. They usually take care about these things. So you could poke them and ask if they want to collaborate or connect with you in some way. Obviously, hashtags are a good way to reach them, but you will need to look for the hashtags. I don't know if there's one that will help. But again, if you look for the narrative designer type, I think you will find a lot of good contacts.
Sure. I would also say that at the moment, I think looking for organizations that are region specific, right? Obviously, the international global, developer organizations have chapters all over, as well as going to meetup pages. I look after meetup groups in several countries, actually, and often people will come to the event, whether in person or by posting on the forums of the meetup page, and say, I'm recruiting and I'm looking for these certain things, or even ask for advice because, that particular group of people may have a high representation of what they're looking for. So I wouldn't, I would definitely recommend looking for local organizations, both on, IGDA and meetup pages as well. Yeah, no, I think, without getting too wordy, this really was quite an experiment for us. We wanted to see if, you'll be interested and you'll tune in, and it was great to hear so many people come in, and so many of you are still here over an hour and a half in. So we hope to see you again. To follow the development of whether or not these events will become more regular, make sure to follow Unity on Unity's official Twitter. That's where the announcements will be. And of course, feel free to connect with everybody who's been here today. And thank you so much for your time, you guys. We do this because of you and for you. So your input is quite important. I think also after the session, you may receive a link to give your feedback on how this went. So feel free to let us know, everything from setup to flow to the length of the presentation, anything that comes to mind, you can help us make it better for the future. So thank you, and we hope to see you again soon.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.